Hello fellow mayors and welcome to Hyrule. I'm King Link and this is my last look and review of Cities Skylines. Now citizenship in Hyrule is simple. Just subscribe to my channel, there's no ads or taxes required. It helps me to show a need to developers for them to give me review copies when possible. If you are subscribed and you want to see more of my videos in your feed, consider ringing the bell. I appreciate it. With that bureaucracy out of the way, this is the next game in our humble monthly bundle for December 2018 early unlock lineup. Boy, that's a mouthful. So let's talk about City Skylines. If your first thought is, oh, this is like Simcity, you've got it already. The game actually was made by Colossal Order. In 2013, as they made Cities in Motion 2, Simcity came out and honestly it wasn't loved. There was a lot of issues. Colossal Order decided to make City Skylines, and it came out 2 years later in 2015. Now, it's very similar in a lot of ways to SimCity, though the big difference is, in my opinion, is that, well, there's no online play, it's quite good, and its focus is more on making larger cities than trying to find a way to interconnect them to other cities or players. Now, I'm sure that SimCity has improved quite a bit since it first launched. It needed to, and good for that, but the City Skylines has done it all right out of the gate, and it has been getting good updates since then also. I'll talk a bit about that later, but let's talk about what this game really is. So, graphically, City Skylines is impressive. You get amazingly large cities and a lot of buildings, as well as a huge view on the screen. This is the city I've been working on just for this review. I have a number of them, and I'll be honest, when a city reaches about this size, I lose a bit of interest in it. The city becomes almost monolithic around 500,000 people, and that's good, but the large-scale problems are dull, as you have almost infinite money and can just treat different areas as completely different cities. I start the video by looking at the individual people of my city, zooming way in, as well as pulling all the way out so that you can see the different graphical levels. And honestly, I did have to turn down the graphical quality a bit for those close-up views, which is why this might not look as amazing as some videos out there on higher hardware. The fact, though, is the graphical options look nice, but there's a couple issues that I'm going to call out no matter what. First off, the buildings look similar. It's hard to tell the industrial areas from the offices from either the low or high residential or commercial areas at a distance. You can learn it, and the lower density stuff does tend to look simple, but overall, once the buildings start to grow, they all look like towers. The amount of greenery in addition and everything else you place down as well as a type will also add to the looks. However, the game was made 3 years ago, and it does look good for the time. However, I would prefer weaker graphics because the focus of the game really needs to be on the gameplay and the simulation that it's running. Now, there is no story here, and I'm not going to say much about it, but I would actually say that adding a story or trying to make there's a story progression here would lose points in my mind, so let's just move on to gameplay. And honestly, there's a lot to love here. I'm a huge SimCity fan, so this is going to be right up my alley no matter what. Building out of the city, watching it grow, trying new things is always going to be fun. That's what City Skylines does so well. You start with 2 roads, as you can see in my first look, and from there you create this huge expansive world that I've actually made here. Even being able to buy more land is cool. In fact, the area of the road you start the game off with can be purchased, as I have in this game. Expand as you want and develop your own city. There's no real right way to play City Skylines, but you have to make sure you bring in more money than you spend. That's probably the one rule. If you do that, anything is possible. Of course, you do want to try to maximize your money, at least I do, but if you want to try to run almost no surplus, you can try playing that way as well. I do have a number of complaints though, and they're mostly minor. If you want to see a near full list, check my written review, but let's go over some of them here. I do love the road system here, but I'm a guy who adores the grid. The New York style grids are great. Problem is, if there's any change in elevation or anything else other than a perfectly flat land, grids don't work so well. If you can't draw two perfect parallel lines that meet two others, you're going to be off by just a little bit. But to be off a little means your grid doesn't match up, and instead of a beautiful 6 square cross grid, you get 2 misshapen 3 square grids next to each other, and I play with them a little bit in this video, so you should be able to see them. It's hard to really explain, and maybe it's only my OCD, but you can see it in a few places in the video, and it annoys me. It's also frustrating that there's a lot of systems that don't feel absolutely intuitive, such as the power grid. If you place a power tower on a zone grid, the zone won't replace it when it's time. Simple thing, but it requires an annoying step to replace the electrical towers that aren't needed any longer. There's 2 really big parts or problems of this game, in my opinion. Citizen wants are always going to be a part of the game, and for the most part this is good, but wanters are told through the chirper at the top of the screen. Some wants are easy. They want water? Great. Power? Sure. However, sometimes people will bitch about there being no water, when there definitely seem to have water and there's no way to really solve that. In addition, some wants are just not achievable. Have one house in a polluted area? You'll keep hearing about it rather than becoming a low-income household and them just dealing with it. Pollution as a general problem is always going to exist in the game, and you can lower the complaints, but you'll always have some NIMBYism. And pollution is the constant one, especially until you unlock offices, as dirty industry is the only way to start your city. Now, part of this is how City Skylines has a progression system. You only have zoning and roads at the beginning of the game, but as your city grows, you unlock education, fire, police, garbage, health, everything. This is a great way to grow the game, and part of the reason the early game is so much fun, because you keep getting new pieces, but it also limits your options. You can go wind or coal at the beginning of the game, but until you unlock more, that's all you have. Want to go green? How about solar and hydroelectric? Great, except those come way late in the game. At least I think both come after you get 100,000 people. Dealing with sewage? Well, you have to dump that until you can finally build a septic or sewage treatment plant. Good news is that sewage treatment plant seems to immediately drop the water pollution to 0 if you have enough. Bad news, it comes very late in the game. Now, the progression is good, mind you, but can be frustrating when you want to do one thing specifically. Now, the other problem is the bigger one. You're going to be waiting in this game quite often. Whether it be for money, people to move in, problems to occur, or just passing time, there's downtime. City management games aren't about constant action, but in City Skylines there tends to be a lot of downtime. A week will take about a minute or 2 to play out, and that's the time for the amount of money that you're going to get from the screen. A year takes about an hour there. But even at its fastest speed, time only seems to double, so all of a sudden a week takes half a minute, and a year takes 30 minutes instead of an hour. That's not much improvement. Waiting for money and other stuff kind of sucks, but it is a big part of the game. Now, like I've said, there's more. The educational system, for instance, only has 1 building per level, and they all have to be built in order. Trying to get full capacity for that is annoying, and you can read the review for that. In addition, the game also doesn't have an undo function. It's annoying when you're trying out a new tool and make a mistake and more. These are annoyances. Of course, you can read more about that. Now, the other side here is, I mentioned updates, and there's a lot of DLC for this game. Honestly, it's expensive. They're about $15 a pop, and I don't know if any adds that much. I do have Snowfall here, and I do have After Dark. And if you want to dive into either of those, okay, but they don't really change much in the game in my opinion, and only offer something else to do with it. If you've put in 100 hours into this game or more, it's definitely worth it, but honestly, I'd rather see a sequel here. Now, you do get good updates along with most of those DLCs. With After Dark, you've gotten a day-night cycle for free, and with Snowfall, I forget if you got the snow itself for free, but there is updates along with it. On the other hand, I have to say there is fantastic mod support. Actually, while I was making this review, I had a problem. I cranked some graphic settings and noticed there was an ugly fog on my machine. I couldn't get it off for the video. There's actually a mod to disable fog and cloud. 2 seconds bam, it's downloaded, it loaded in, and it looks great now. The mod support is really something else, and kudos to Colossal Order, because I could complain about the DLC, but I'm going to have to say that the mod support is so good, I'm going to look the other way on that. And the thing is, I see a lot of negatives with City Skylines. I do have problems with the amount of DLC instead of a sequel for the game, and I've been complaining most of this video. But I also have to admit that City Skylines is excellent. It's SimCity as I wanted it to be. It wanted to replace SimCity, and it has multiple times over. To me, if I want to play a city management game, I'm playing City Skylines, no question. Kudos to them for that. Overall, City Skylines has issues, but it's a top-notch game, and I think anyone looking for a city management game will actually have a hard time trying to find any of them out there, but I think it's impossible to find one that is better than City Skylines. I'm going to give City Skylines a 4.5 out of 5. It's a really solid game. It's essential for anyone who's a fan of the city management genre. It's a lot of fun, a huge time sink, but at the same time, I think it could be better. I really hope one day soon we'll hear about a sequel to it instead of more DLC, but the base game itself is excellent, and it's definitely worth checking out if you want to run a city. That's City Skylines, and honestly, it's so good. Up next, we're going to be finishing off that humble monthly bundle for December 2018 early unlocks. That's going to be Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. The Ground Zeroes review is already up, and the Phantom Pain, well, it's an interesting tale. I'll dig into it next time. It's going to be a ride. Until then, I'm King Link, and thank you very much for watching.